everybody, and welcome to the Australian Property Investing Hub. I'm welcoming today our recent clients, or current clients, I should say, Taylah and Trent, who are actually in the final stages of purchasing their first home. So, guys, welcome to the Hub today.
G'day.
Thanks so much for being with us. Now, guys, I'd like to, wind it right back to when we first met and some of those first discussions. So how did you become aware or get into contact with Over and Above?
Yeah, you go because you're your friend.
So my dad's partner actually recommended you guys. They had been to a seminar that you had held at the Sunshine Coast. And when we spoke to them about what our ideas and whatnot, they're like, well, you have to go through Over and Above. I just messaged them, see how they can help. And yeah, that's pretty much so recommended by Steph, which is good.
Yeah, excellent. So that was a fair while ago now. That was earlier this year, maybe around April, I would say, April or May. Mm-hmm. And, we had quite a few in-depth conversations back then around what your strategy may have been to purchasing your first home. Do you guys want to maybe sort of elaborate on what it was back then and how that maybe has evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think initially we sort of wanted to go in gung-ho and all that. We had these big dreams of like, this is our first home. We're going to make it basically our dream forever home and all that. And we wanted to buy some property and some land and build a really nice house on that. I think we sort of, after a few discussions with you guys, I think my thought process basically brought us back down to say, well, that's the dream, so that's what we're working to. But to get there, we've got to take some steps to get there in the first place. And I think that was an excellent conversation for me because it brought me back to a realistic idea for, number one, my budget. Mm-hmm. So working with what we could afford, and two, just getting us in the housing game and building that portfolio to begin with. I think that was my biggest takeaway, was that, yep, we've got all these dreams and goals that we want to achieve, but like, you don't just wake up one day and you achieve them. You've got to work towards there. I think that was the biggest takeaway. And I think with the support from you guys, it really sort of made the dream seem, even though we haven't sort of reached where we were aiming for, it's actually made it seem more realistic, and it's made our dream home seem more affordable, and our dream home will actually be able to get there quicker than what we would have if we wanted to go straight into that position. So
yeah, it was. I remember now, I'm just thinking back, that we had quite an in-depth Zoom call on the first night, and then the next time I checked in with you guys, I remember actually on that first Zoom saying to you, have you thought about anything beyond your own home? Have you thought about building a portfolio? And I think the initial answer was no, not really. We just said we just want our own home. And I remember following up with you guys maybe a week or so later, and the response was something like, we think we might buy an established investment property now, or I can't remember if it was investment or just an established property. So we had gone from a conversation where you had spoken to a broker and understood some of your borrowing capacity, which was fantastic because you both had great jobs, and looking at potentially using all of that capacity. Whereas the next conversation was, let's take those stepping stones and let's look at purchasing a property that we can hang on to down the track when we decide we might want to build or buy another property, but it's one that's going to perform for us at the same time. We can use it as a home now, but then we can use it as an investment property into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally think those conversations were They guided us in the right direction. So you never pressured us or told us, well, listen, no, the best way to do it is this way. You sort of just, you spoke about the options, and rather than saying, listen, I think this is what you should do, you gave us the information which we could take back and I suppose own that decision for us to go, well, no, this is where we're going to go instead. And I think that's what made buying this house so much more exciting, was the fact that we haven't sacrificed anything. We're just working towards the bigger goal.
Yeah. And how much more satisfying will it be when you look at, when you do reach that dream home? Because Taylah, I know that you had picked out the dream home, you know, and looked into the build costs of this, and it was pretty substantial. Absolutely beautiful property, so absolutely something to work towards. But, you know, the stepping stone, when you look back in the years to come and the stepping stones that you've taken to get there, not just for the satisfaction of that, but the wealth that you will have been able to generate through that time as well to be able to even to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent. So I remember sitting on the couch one Saturday afternoon and getting what seemed like a bit of a desperate text, or actually I think I had a missed call, and then I got a text and then an email, I think. And there were a couple of excited little kids here. So do you want to tell me what happened on that Saturday?
Yeah, so I went to, because Taylah was working. I had a couple of houses that I went to an open home for. The first house was very similar to what we were sort of looking at with like the Queensland style home and all this sort of stuff. So it was really, really similar to what we're actually after. I went there and I got a friend that I work with who I suppose is quite knowledgeable when it comes to that sort of stuff. And she sort of gave me a bit of advice. This is what the stuff you're looking for. I went in and I'm like, nah, this house I just don't feel it. Checked on realestate.com because I'm like, well, let's do nothing else today. I'm bored, so let's look for something else. Found this other home that I was like, yeah, it's 3-bedroom. It's not the 4 that we wanted, so it's a bit smaller, but I'll go and have a look. Walked in the house and just instantly something spoke to me and said, this is the house I want to have. It was, as I said, it was sort of a sacrifice with a smaller property, not as big as a block, not as big with like bedrooms and all that sort of stuff. So it was a sacrifice. However, I felt like it was something that was going to be more affordable. And there was just, I don't know, when people say that when you know, it was just, I walked in and I knew. There was no questioning, or like, I looked around and checked for the sort of stuff that like, oh, this looks like it needs improvement and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, overall, I was just like, this is the house. This is what I really want to get into. Went back, I spoke to the real estate agent selling. I'm like, oh, listen, my wife is at work. What's the chance you can come back at 1 o'clock and when she finishes so she can have a look before I put in an offer or anything? And he was all like, yep, absolutely. Ran over to Taylor's work as quick as I could. Basically said, hey, listen, this house I love and I really, really would like for you to go and have a look. Taylah finished and off we went. We went and had a look at it and all that. And I think, probably not as excited as I was, but yeah, it was a nice family style home that we could definitely see ourselves living in for the future. It was just a beautiful location, and right around the corner there was a brand new Coles being built. Hasn't been built, like it's been built now, but when we were buying originally, it was getting the final touches done. And I was like, well, listen, if we get in here, there's going to add some value to it pretty quickly. So yeah, and then got home, and ahed, and I was like, listen, I won't put an offer in. Like, I don't think we're ready yet and all that. And I was feeling a bit sad. So I'm like, I really like this house. And yeah, Taylah just said, let's just do it. So then, I frantically got on the phone to contact you, Alex. And yeah, basically from there, just as you said, some really excited kids just wanting to start the motions with this. And yeah, I think that excitement it was a very emotional purchase as we discussed earlier when we were going through this process. But yeah, I think that excitement was fueled the push that I was after to try and get this. With that being said, at no point did I ever think that like I was, because I didn't want to take your Saturday away, because I used to work weekends and I hated that. But I didn't feel at any point that you were like, no, I'm not going to help you. It's Saturday. I'm trying to have relax and all that. You're fairly quick to go, bang, yep, let's get on it. And that afternoon, you put up our first offer and straight away, like it was, no complaining or no like, oh yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. You'll just bang straight onto it. So I think that continued that excitement for a while. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I loved your energy. I feel like when we had a chat on the phone, Trent, I nearly felt like I could hear you panting with excitement.
Yep.
So I was like, I was feeling the energy and really excited for you. We love all of our clients, but particularly when it's a first home buyer, it was an emotional purchase for you guys, still is. And really, really excited for you. So that's part of our service, whether it's a Saturday night or not. I was, ready to act for you, and was straight on the phone to, my business partners, Mark and Adam, I think who you've met, Adam, to just have everyone involved to make sure it was a great experience for you. But can I ask, the different from going to an inspection and deciding you want to put in an offer, and I know we'd had many conversations, but what was the point where you said, okay, we need support with this. I don't know the next step, so I'm going to call Alex.
Yeah, so, sorry, do you want to add something? Or?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it was more we didn't really know where to start with an offer. Like, they had what they wanted, like offers over, but we didn't know where to start. And you were very helpful and knew exactly like where we should start and move forward with that. And I think that's the thing that we needed the most, was just that extra bit of help because we've never done this before. So we just needed someone who is in that realm and knew what they were talking about and what to offer and whatnot. So.
Yeah. So I just want to sort of explain to the members. So Taylah and Trent engaged over and above for our negotiation only service. So as you've heard, they actually identified the property. Now, our negotiation only service is where we will basically come in from the point where the property has been identified that, they'd like to act upon that, and we will then handle the rest of the process essentially. So from, the contact with the guys that night, I was already on the computer doing due diligence, on the phone to the agent, speaking to Mark. I know Mark spoke to the agent who actually sold the property next door. So we were, really understanding what had happened in the local area, in that market. And, there were lots of conversations that we had between us, Taylah and Trent, about, how much would be too much to pay for this property. And even though it is your home, or is going to be your home, we didn't want to put you in a position where any of us turn around and say, well, you potentially paid a little bit too much for that. So we had conversations around, is there a point where you are prepared to walk away unemotionally from this property, when it gets to that point? And we got close to that point. It looked like it was a little bit touch and go there for a moment. It took a little bit of negotiating with that agent to have that offer accepted. We counted a couple of times, but I think we came out with a fantastic result. And when you look back now and say, we didn't know where to start with our offer, and you're right, it was offers over. It was listed as offers over something. So, you easily could have gone in and actually put an offer in straight off the bat over the listing price. And alternatively, with professional help, we secured the property, I think, for around $10,000 under the listing price. Yep. So that's very significant in the grand scheme of things, isn't it? Particularly when this probably isn't your forever home, and it will at some point be a vehicle to wealth creation.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you spoke on there with the price and that. So we originally, are you happy if I talk about figures, like what we paid?
Absolutely.
Yep. So originally it was offers listed over 339, so 339,000. We originally had, so the first offer was at 310, and that was, I won't say politely declined, but that was declined. Taylah and I had the discussion. We're like, right, our smart purchase is we're going to go no more than 325. Mm-hmm. But to add on that, you're talking about, because it was an emotional purchase, we had I suppose, the discussion of like an emotional price. Mm-hmm. And it came down to, if 325 gets offered, the most emotionally that we're willing to spend on this would be 330, because it's still 9,000 less than what the asking price was. Mm-hmm. And if it was over that, then emotionally we weren't willing to take that on board. So we're going to walk away. So when we were buying, we sort of had two figures. One was the smart decision is this cost here, and we're going to stick at that. But the emotional decision was, are we going to be willing to risk losing this house over $5,000? Especially when, as you said before, Alex, we got the house for $10,000 less. Mm. And that. So I think, by having that, I suppose, emotional backup towards it, because it was a house that we're going to live in, it just sort of it clarified a little bit more with us that we've got kind of that safety net. So if they turned around and said, no, 325 is not good enough, I'm not going to be like over 5,000. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I would have been happy either way, sort of thing. But then when it started going further, that's when I was like, well, no, we're not going to go any higher than that. So, and then you mentioned, like, I think the biggest thing that we took with the negotiation fee, the negotiation service, was the fact that when they came back and said, well, we're not going to accept this offer, and they didn't really offer a counter offer, you kind of took the ball and said, right, well, we won't keep negotiating. We'll say, here's our best and here's our last offer. This is our best and final offer. Yeah. If it came back to me, I would have been like, okay, well, I don't know, I'll give you the 339 that you're asking for. So I would have done myself out of pocket more money there. So I think by having your service there, it just simply allowed one to take the pressure away from us as buyers, because like I was worried that if we put an offer in, it's going to be declined and seen as insulting, and they won't want to do service with us. Mm-hmm. So by you guys jumping in and doing that for us, it took all that pressure away from us. So we could just sit back and instead of putting our emotion into it, we can just put our head into it and be like, right, they're doing all this stuff for us. We'll get the response back and then we can go yes or no. We're not sort of upsetting the apple cart or anything like that. So I think that was fantastic from our point of view, was the fact that you guys sort of handled any of that sort of stuff that was, I suppose, the difficult conversations to have with sellers. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm even thinking back now, you know, there's lots of selling tactics, there's lots of negotiation tactics, and you know, when professionals are talking with other professionals, some of those really come to the forefront as well. And a couple of my conversations with the agent, I remember thinking to myself, who I've now got a fantastic relationship, but it's just funny during negotiation where I found a lot of things very unclear. And I remember saying to you, Trent, how did you go at the inspection? But anyway, yeah. At the end of the day, I remember thinking, I'm glad that I'm handling this for these guys and not them, because as I said, it's fine. It's a selling tactic, some form of, professional negotiation, I guess. But as I said, I was just very glad at that point that I was able to decipher some of those messages that were coming through, bring it back to you and say, what I gather here is this is what's happening. Here's where I think we should go in. How do you feel about it? And I guess at the end of the day, we got the deal done, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just, one thing there, I guess, is we started our conversation months before this happened, and we had already introduced you to your mortgage broker, which obviously made, when this was all, you know, happening so quickly over a weekend, it meant that you already had professionals in place to support you really quite swiftly. So, you know, we were back in touch with Craig, I think it was Sunday, if not, it was first thing Monday morning. And, you know, Craig, your mortgage broker, you know, was straight on board with you. He knew your personal situation. He knew what needed to be done and what, you know, information he needed to get your pre-approval, get your finance in place. So I think that just highlights that some of these things can happen overnight like yours did, but the conversation had been happening for quite a while. You know, we had someone there to support you from a finance perspective. Then you also had us, you know, on your property team, and Craig included in that. And then moving forward over and above, utilising our connections and our relationships with regards to the conveyancer, the building and pest inspector, and people like that. So to really create a property team around you so that you don't need to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really cool because, it had already been all done for us. We already had it all. So we didn't have to worry about having to find someone or anything like that.
Yeah, that's right. So let's go on to the building and pest. So we obviously arranged that for you guys. That's part of our service. That came back like they all do with the, you know, established property. It comes back with every chip of paint, and, you know, it takes a professional to really decipher through, or, you know, dissect those reports to understand what is actually significant, what needs rectifying, and, you know, or potentially a renegotiation on price, depending on the situation. So we came back with a couple of things there that we saw as, I wouldn't say significant, but they definitely need rectifying. Trent, do you want to talk about that a little bit? We sort of talked a fair bit about this between ourselves.
Yeah, so it came back where like there was a lot of little things that needed to happen, and that like silicone around the bath and tiles and all that sort of stuff. So standard little stuff where it was kind of like I could do. I could probably do it myself, or I could get a professional to get in and get it done and that. But it also came down to I got a lot of tradie mates that I've already spoken to that have been like, yeah, once you're in, let me know and I'll come and do it for you. The biggest one was around the property was some yucca plants, little yucca trees that pretty much need to be pulled out just because of the termite. Like there's potential area for termites and all that sort of stuff, which again then spoke to my mum about it, and her partner, he's coming up to get rid of them and cut them off and poison them for me. So little things like that we sort of, one, we can save money on, and two, we can do when we move in. Other than that, there was just a thing on the roof that we need to screw back down and put some silicone around and that. So all that sort of stuff was really good. And I think when I got the initial report, it was like, 30 plus pages long. Yeah. And I'm reading through it and I'm like, okay, you're pretty much saying like, yeah, there's a lot of problems with this house. But when you broke it down, there was really three: silicone, the tile, like around the tiles, the trees, and the thing on the roof. So overall, there wasn't too much. It was pretty simple to fix. I think what it came down to, getting the building and pest, not approved, but to sign off on that part of the contract. It was a pretty quick thing of like, okay, we can either get them to pay for it or we can organise it. The seller declined because they already dropped the price, which is I kind of knew was going to happen, but I sort of, let's throw it out there and see what happens. And then it just came back as, hey, they're not going to do it. Do you want to organise someone before? And I'm like, well, nah, it's all good. I've got some friends that can do that sort of stuff for us. So it was a pretty quick process, which was awesome. But having that document of 30 plus pages cut down to, here is 3 points that you need to fix, was pretty handy, because I was looking at it and going, oh God, this house has got more problems than it does that are good. So that was a bit sort of scary. But then when you sort of broke it down and that, I was like, well, it's not really that much that needs fixing. So
That's right. Yeah, they can be very overwhelming. And that's, I think a part of our service that gets spoken about a lot, but sort of just brushed over. But when it comes down to it, when you're actually in, the middle of contracts and whether you need to satisfy these conditions and the stress of moving and all these things, and then this report comes in that's 30 pages, I think it's only then that the overwhelm starts to come in. So as part of our service, we go through that with a fine-tooth comb. And as you say, we, break down exactly what our recommendations are with regards to that. Toby, as part of our team, is a tradesman. So he looks over every building and pest for us. And, with his expertise, he's able to decipher whether something is a major issue or very, very minor. So you're right there. The sellers did decline to do any of the works or rectifying any of the problems, because they actually had an offer on the property at full ask way before you guys had come in. So in their mind, they had done a huge reduction on the property. So these are the sorts of negotiations that continue. But I remember the conversation then as well being, it's almost not worth upsetting the apple cart when it may be, for $500 or $1,000 worth of work, and you've already had such a great gain. So that was the decision, that we were happy to satisfy the building and pest condition with the conveyancer and move forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. So we're moving on to pre-settlement now. So we are up to inspect the property on Monday.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll be joining you guys up at the property in Toowoomba to go through. There was a tenant in the property. The tenant has moved out. So just making sure that everything is in the same condition as when you actually inspected the property the first time. And you're going to be settling that Friday on your new home. So congratulations. Yep.
Thank you.
Are you all set? Are you all prepared?
Yep. We have about 1,000 boxes that need to be packed, but that's
we're slowly starting to pack. Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm excited to be up there with you guys, go through the property, be by your side for that. And very exciting time for you. I'm so glad that it turned out this way as an amazing stepping stone. And, over and above, was so thrilled to be along your journey and hopefully continue to be along your journey into the future as well. And watch the stepping stones to that sort of dream home. It's an exciting time for you both.
Yeah, very exciting. Thank you. We couldn't do enough for all your help.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's great. Well, thank you so much for being in the hub as well. I think our members will have found that, very, very helpful. A lot of people probably, think that they've found the perfect property, but just don't know what to do next. So I think you've, most likely inspired a lot of our members as well as to how they can have professional support. So thank you for sharing your story.
No, that's all right. Not a problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. We'll be back in the hub next week. Thanks again.